Well, good morning and welcome to this next in our Bible Through the Year videos, which is an introduction to the, book of Galatians. It's the letter to the Galatians. As we've already seen with Romans and Corinthians, Paul is a prolific letter writer to write and encourage the early church. And here we have this letter to the Galatians. Now, Galatians is a kind of umbrella term for people living in the area of Galatia. So Galatia is not as cold as it sounds as a word. It's an area which in today's world is kind of northern central Turkey. So around the city of Ankara in modern day Turkey, that's the area of Galatia. So it's written to several churches, not just one church, but several churches in and around that early area of Galatia in Turkey. Christianity had spread quite far beyond Jerusalem. Started off in Jerusalem as a almost exclusively Jewish sect of Judaism, and it spreads very quickly throughout the ancient world. And Paul, by the time we get to the time of Paul, you have almost as many non-Jewish believers in Jesus as you have Jewish believers in Jesus. And this sparked a big argument about whether or not new converts to Christianity should have to obey the old Jewish laws. So there were certain things that marked the people of Israel out as God's holy people in the past, in the Torah, and broadly speaking, those are circumcision for men, it's the obeyance of certain laws, including food purity and so on, and it is the honouring of the Sabbath. And a big debate happens, and we can read about that in Acts chapter 15, about whether new converts to Christianity should have to obey those Jewish laws, even if they aren't themselves ethnically Jewish. And Paul is very much of the opinion that the people who are not Jewish by descent shouldn't have to obey the law of Israel. That's a burden for Israel to carry. But there were some who disagreed with him. And some of those people who disagreed with him, those Jewish Christians, were going over to places like Galatia and the churches in Galatia and were telling them, look, you guys have to be circumcised in order to follow Jesus. And many of the people in the church at the time were actually obeying that. And so Paul is writing, and you can read about the exploits of Paul in the area of Galatia in Acts chapter 13 and 14, but he's writing to them in response to say to them, guys, look, the message that I preached to you, the message that I came and brought to you was that you are free in Jesus to follow a different path, to follow a new way, that you're not kind of slaves to the law, that you're not under the burden of the law. And this gospel of Jesus as the crucified Messiah is where you find life. It's not in the obedience of the law, but it is in following Jesus. And we can read about that in Galatians chapter 2, in verses 19 to 20. It says this: "For through the law I died to the law, so that I might live for God. I have been crucified with Christ, and no longer I that live, but Christ lives in me. The life I now live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me." So Paul is very much of the opinion that it is faith in Jesus and faith in Jesus alone, not obedience to the law, which justifies us and makes us right with God. So that's the first couple of chapters of Galatians. We then have Galatians 3 and 4, which talks about how that belief in Jesus, and that the goal really for God was always to have this big multi-ethnic family. Israel as a light to the nations. We're meant to draw people in to faith in God. And what that looks like, how God is creating that new family. And then verses 5 and 6 is what that transformed life in Jesus looks like. And we have those wonderful words which I'm writing about in the book that I'm writing in Galatians chapter 5 about life by the Spirit. And it says here, the fruit of the Spirit in Galatians 5:22. Fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness and self-control. Against such things there is no law. So what does your transformed life in Jesus look like? It looks like this. It looks like love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. That's what it looks like for those who are transformed into the likeness of Jesus, little by little, as we continue on in that journey of faith. So Paul's letter, which he passionately writes to the Galatians, is defending the freedom that they have in Jesus and explaining to them how that freedom causes them to live in this different way, this transformed way, and that makes a difference in terms of doing good to society and to the world that they live in. That they are a new creation. And we saw that in Corinthians, a new creation. The old has gone, the new has come. Last month when we had Charlotte's baptism, that was what we chose as a baptismal verse for her. Is the old has gone in Christ, you're a new creation. The old has gone, the new has come. That is very much the thrust of Paul's argument in Galatians. So hopefully that gives you some background, some context to Paul's letter to the Galatians, where they are, the kind of issues that they're wrestling with, a part of a bigger global church wrestle as well. And hopefully it encourages us that it isn't through our good works, it isn't through our observance of the law that we are made right with God. It is through faith in Jesus, and then the transformative power of the Spirit that causes us to live transformed lives that draw others in to that community of faith as well. And I pray that as you read these wonderful words in this wonderful letter, God really blesses you.